I didn't actually talk about chromosomes yet. So your DNA is organized into 23 separate chromosomes, chunks of DNA. They're very long, but they're organized by size. Like there's nothing mystical about what makes chromosome 5 and chromosome 6. It's just the biggest one is chromosome 1 and the smallest one is chromosome 22. That's all it is. And then also like your chromosome 23 is what's their sex chromosomes. That's your X and Y. Generally, I will get to the exceptions of this. XX is a female and XY is a male. So when Henry VIII was really mad that none of his wives would give him sons, it was actually his fault because the men determined the gender, the sex of the baby, because the men are the one, because women only have X's, so they can only contribute X's. Men contribute X or Y, so it was actually his fault. So yeah, that's how that works. So just to talk through the process of meiosis, because you need to know a little bit about this to just know how the chromosomes are split up. So you have your like one precursor cell, which still has your 46 chromosomes. So you've got one copy of each from each of your parents. So chromosome 1, you have one from mom, one from dad. Same for every single one. Of course, there's always exceptions. There are a couple of cases where you can have different numbers of chromosomes and still be like viable. Down syndrome is trisomy 22. Or 21, sorry. Trisomy 21. So you have 3 chromosome 21s.
Could you explain the word viable? Because I feel like...
I'm sorry. I that's a very specific term. I just mean that you like are able to be born and be alive. That's all I mean. So there's a couple other trisomies as well, but they either are spontaneous abortions or they only live for like months or days. So what I mean by viable, I'm not trying to like say anything social. I just mean that they're able to survive and like be alive. Okay. That's all I mean. So thanks for correcting me on that.
It's not really a correction. It's a word. It's like someone could call someone, "You're not viable." And it's like, ooh. So
it's used different in science than in general population.
Yeah, like and it's like a genetics kind of term for there's like some like there's some gene mutations that like you cannot make a human without this gene working, so it's considered non-viable. Like it will be born and live for 2 days, but it like won't have a brain, so like that's considered not viable. That's what I mean by that. Anyway, so going back to your just meiosis process, the goal of this one is to create a genetically new cell, different cell, that has only half the chromosome complement that a normal cell does, because to make the baby, you want to have like some from mom and some from dad, right? Because you're both going to have half the number of chromosomes, so that when there is fertilization, now you have the proper number of chromosomes. So there is also an important point, which will come up when I talk about SRY translocations. Don't worry, I'll get to it. Where all of your chromosomes, so all the ones you get from mom and all the ones you get from dad, they line up in a way that all the genes are like lined up together and they exchange information. So at the end of this process, you will have created a new chromosome in your sperm or egg that has like pieces from your mom and pieces from your dad.
And they're lined up in order, right?
Like in order, so that all the genes match up.
Number 3 goes to number 3, and they'll take half of number 3 from one side, half of number 3 from the other side, and make a new number 3?
Yeah, pretty much. There'll be like several different pieces of crossover, so you get like one chunk. This is from, like if you're looking at your own genes, it'll be like this chunk's from grandma, this chunk's from grandpa, this chunk's from grandma, and so on. So that's done to like it increases the amount of variation in the kids by like just an obscene amount. It's an incredibly useful process to create more diversity.
Because it's like exponentially, right? Binary, but exponentially binary.
Very much, like a huge amount. And there is also, so your X and Y chromosomes, just to jump back for a second, the X is a huge chromosome, like it's massive. and the Y chromosome is very small. So, and the Y chromosome does not have like a huge amount of genes on it, but it does have some in common with the X. So they do actually undergo this process as well. So there is some exchange between X and Y. Not a lot, but there is a little bit. And yeah, just to increase the diversity in those areas as well.